being in a crisis, being at a spot where you don't know what's going on, and the earth shakes and everything is out of control, and everything seems like a problem, and that problem needs to be solved. And we try so hard to make everything right again. And when it doesn't work, most people tend to blame it on themselves and to speak awful ways to themselves. And I think that the fact that most people, or most of us, just treat these difficult situations as problems and crises and things that we want to escape from is the first problem. Because when we see these things as games, opportunities shows up with minimal efforts on our side.
Welcome, listeners, to Beyond Circumstances, the podcast where we explore strengths and tools and insights, and we think outside the box to learn how can we and our coaching clients rise above circumstances. And today I have with me Jasmin Vaisburd. Welcome, Jasmin. Great to have you.
Thank
I
you.
am good. I am good. And I'm excited to have you. And before I invite you to introduce yourself, I want to say a few words about how I met you. So I actually came across your name on social media because you were dealing with dragons, and I love dragons. And you just came out with this new deck of cards called Unleashing Dragons. And I was like, okay, I'm hooked. So I attended this event that you did, and I completely fell in love with the cards, with your work, with you, started following you, not in a creepy way, and I bought two deck of cards, one in Hebrew and the other in English. I have used them both in my coaching sessions. I've used them with my boyfriend. I've used them with my friends. Let me tell you, this is flipping amazing as far as coaching cards come. This is absolutely unbelievable. And you're writing a book these days, and I decided to start working with you. So I've been unleashing some of my own dragons. And then it just hit me. If we're talking about rising above circumstances, yeah, we need to get some dragons into the picture. So welcome, Jasmin. Please tell us more about who you are and what you do.
Well, okay. So, my best line is that I help people unleash their dragons. And by dragons, I mean desires leashed with fear. So, it's basically a dynamic between two parts of ourselves. There is one part that really wants something, and there is another part that is very much afraid of the fulfillment of this desire, even though it can be the simplest thing. So I help people unleash their desires from cages and leashes of fear, and I do it through emotional playfulness. So I play with grown-ups, which is amazing. That's an amazing job. And we got to play together, and we are playing together. And for me, this is a game in which we play together. And thank you. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. My pleasure. For me, I was familiar with the concept of, bringing in playfulness, even when you're in a crisis, but still working with you took it to a completely different level. So you, for me, are the mother of dragons, the master of dragons. So before we start unpacking, a more playful perspective when it comes to rising beyond circumstances, let's start by inviting dragons into the field of self-care. And I'm going to ask you, two playful ways that you self-care.
Okay, so I take my self-care very seriously. So even when I play with it, it's a very serious play. So the first way for me to take care of myself and to actually, to show love for myself is through rest. So I plan my rest and I plan my vacations and I plan on sleeping well and long and being guilt-free about it and doing it just full-heartedly. without feeling ashamed. It sometimes takes a game to do so because I grew up in a family which is very like hardworking and you should never rest at any circumstances. So for me, it's a fun game to play. So I can play by being the master of rest. What would the master of rest do right now? And I do that. A second way for me to get back my resources is through self pleasure, just, loving and passionate self touch. And it's mostly physical, but it also emotional, very much just nourishing my soul through the best way I can imagine loving me.
That's wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. So, and I invite our listeners to take the whole self pleasuring touch in any which directions they feel like it. Okay,
Please.
be creative. Yeah, yeah. So, this is a question that I ask all of my guests. So, Jasmine, in your experience, what is one thing that most people get wrong when it comes to trying to move beyond circumstances? And I would really appreciate like a personal perspective, but also because you work with people with that perspective as well.
Yeah. So I understand being in a crisis, being at a spot where you don't know what's going on and the earth shakes and everything is out of control and everything seems like a problem and that problem needs to be solved and we try so hard to make everything right again and when it doesn't work, we mostly tend, or most people tend to blame it on themselves and to speak an awful ways to themselves. And I think that the fact that most people, or most of us, just treat these difficult situations as problems and crises and things that we want to escape from is the first problem because when we see these things as games, opportunities shows up with minimal efforts on our side. So what I try to do is replace, and I don't always succeed, right? I'm human, but I try to replace fear with curiosity. And I can do that only when I have enough resources and enough room for all the emotions that rise up.
So we're going to touch on emotions in a bit, but I guess what I'm hearing is that you're saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, that when it comes to crisis is not a bug in the system. It's actually a feature. So it's not a question of if, it's just a question of when and how. So let's be playful with it.
Right. So we can be on our best side, right? We can be the best students in life and we can do whatever is expected and make everyone happy and do whatever we need to do and still problems and crises will come. So living this life, being human, the human experience is filled with rides, and these rides they look like problems. And when we see them, it victimizes us. When we see these problems, it makes us weak and sad. But these are opportunities for us to grow and learn and play back with reality. Don't let it play with
I love
you,
that.
play with it back.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I love that. Okay, so, and I'm experiencing that. So, it also makes sense because I'm, unleashing, you're helping me unleash some of my dragons these days.
Maybe I don't
You
know
mentioned,
if you feel right doing that, but maybe you can say something about what you're doing with your dragons. I don't know.
well, I guess, for me, one of the big dragons has to do with messiness, with being overwhelmed. So I never thought of being playful with that. It's like if everything is messy and I'm completely overwhelmed, I just create the kingdom of messiness and then I'm the ultimate queen of it. And then I just think with myself, how can I take the messiness to the absolute extreme and make it so messy it's gonna be a phenomenon. Like, oh my god, people are gonna say, oh my god, this is like a different level of messiness. And what helps me is to play with it to the extreme where it gets grotesque and I actually start laughing because it's so out there. And then that's the way for me to play my way back to a resourceful state. So, that's one of the things that I learned working with you. Because for me,
Yeah.
humor is a big thing. I need, and I love, and I love when things get crazy, like in a fun way, and they get ridiculous. So here's the thing. I make it so messy that it's absolutely ridiculous and I can't do anything but laugh. And that helps.
Yeah.
So,
And when you laugh about it, can you see other ways of action?
yeah. Oh, yeah. So, and sometimes, sometimes it just, what I need to do is just give myself the time to laugh. And that brings me back to a grounded state because one thing that happens to my nervous system when I laugh, it regulates itself again. So I laugh and I take into consideration all the wacky ways I could deal with this situation and the messiness. And then I take a deep breath and say, okay, so what can I really do? And I see more options because I
Yeah.
just stepped out of that freeze, fight, flight into rest, digest, and laughing a lot.
Yeah. So
So,
I love this kind of games. So I call it emotion party. So you take an emotion that you are very scared of. Like I had a client not very long ago that was very afraid of shame, of feeling shame. And we've created a game where they celebrated and yeah, celebrated shame. Like how in which more ways can we be shameful? And how could it look like? And what can we do with it? And who can we do it with? And it was really fun being shameful like that.
so this is a great segue into emotions because we can't talk about rising beyond circumstances without touching emotions.
Right,
And one thing that people talk a lot about is managing your emotions. And you say, no, don't manage them, play with them.
right,
So I guess, our listeners might be thinking, okay, so playing with nice emotions, okay, or feel good emotions, because I don't like the distinction between positive and negative. They're all human, okay? They're just emotions. But
right.
some of them, really feel difficult. They overwhelm us. Say more about playing with emotions that I would rather not feel.
Well, everything that we rather not feel, and it's not only emotions, like it's voices inside us that we rather not hear, and memories we rather not remember. Everything that we don't want in us just waits there for us to see it and give it more space. So all of these things are our shadows, and dragons are shadows. They're desires that we don't want in our lives because we are very afraid of them. So when we play with these things that we are so afraid of them, our fear. Okay, you know what? Let's talk about our fears first because they are the ones that we don't want to touch. Most of all, we don't want to be afraid because that's horrible. But our
Yeah.
fears are our biggest shadows. Because we don't want to be afraid, we are not listening to our fears. We tell them to shut up and leave us alone and let us be brave without them. But being brave is being with our fears. So playing with fears actually means bringing a safe space so we can hear and be with our fears. And when we can do that, we can be with any other emotion or voice or memory because we are not afraid of being afraid. So that's the tip of the iceberg. But once we are able to do that, any other emotion or part of self is available and in reach for
Yeah.
us.
Just from a very simple perspective, what we resist persists. So when
Right.
we put a lot of energy in shutting something out, muting it, pushing it out of the equation, whatever, locking it in the other room, we're going to be busy with it. So we might as well make a safe space. But Jasmine, you used the word shadow. I think
Right.
twice, 3 times. So, for our listeners that are not familiar with the concept of shadow, what a shadow is, could you say a few words about that?
Sure. Give me a moment. Okay, so a shadow is every part of self which we do not want to see in our identity. So I want, for example, to identify as a very nice and clean person. But of course, I am not only clean and nice, I am also messy and horrible sometimes. I am human. But when I won't let that be part of my identity, it will become a shadow. And when it is in my shadows, it will run parts of my life without me being aware of it or in control. So these parts are are born when we grow up to see them as dangerous. We may grow up and experience a variety of experiences that points out things as being dangerous for us. And it can be
Yeah.
a behavior or emotion or a voice or anything else that we as grown-ups will push to our shadows without being aware of that. And there's a nice exercise to find your shadows. And I do it by, I don't know if by intention, but it just happened. The exercise, it makes me laugh because it's horrible. The exercise is that you try to find in your imagination someone that really irritates you, like someone that you only see when you scroll on Facebook and you're like, oh, man, not him again, or on TV, or you just remember their name and you're like, oh, why did I remember him? Okay, that kind of person. And then you look for an attribute. You can מאפיין,
Like
איכות
a
מאפיין.
quality, like something that,
Okay, so
like a
then
quality.
you look for a quality that you see in this person that irritates you the most. That is in your shadow.
So, I'm just going to say here, yeah, so, coaches, how sometimes we ask clients, what is something that really pisses you off? What is
Mm,
something that really irritates you? What is something that for you is a deal breaker? And we know that there's a value there, there's something important there. Okay?
right,
Now, when it comes to shadow, the important thing is that I'm never seen as that.
right,
Okay, so for example, if I have an issue with cruelty, okay, when I see cruelty, I can't tolerate it in any shape or form. It means that I have a shadow in the form of cruelty.
right,
There's a part of me that is capable of cruelty, and I want to hide that part away from the world and from myself. So I want to invite our listeners to do some more research around shadow work. Google it, use AI, whatever. But I think if, as coaches, you want to create really sustainable results, you need to address the shadow. Okay, there's a lot of richness there.
right,
So, one thing that shadows can do when they come out, so when these dragons come out to play, we can kind of lose confidence sometimes. So, how can we help our clients create confidence, rebuild their confidence, create clarity after they're going through a major crisis or a major chaotic event?
right. So I think chaotic events, any big life change really steals our sense of control, right, and certainty. And what I help my clients do is create games that gain back the sense of control and certainty. And sometimes these are very much like small, sometimes even imaginary games that we can play just to feel that we have the ground steady under our feet and we are in control even for the smallest parts of reality. And that way we can gradually build back our confidence in what we can control outside of the game.
So, could you give an example?
An example.
You give
So
one and then I give one.
you have one?
I have one for myself. Yeah.
Okay, you go.
Okay. So actually I have two examples and then you're going to give one, of yours. One
Okay.
is that I imagine myself standing on a boat in the middle of a lake. Okay. And the game is to remain balanced. So I start moving and it's kind of using my core muscles, but what I do is I play with the fact that the ground underneath me is shaky. Okay. And then what I realize is that I can control my own movement. And then, that sense of control gradually expands because I start
Right.
with that. Another thing that I like doing is sometimes when I'm outside and I go to a department store, you know how they have these sliding doors with a sensor? You come near them and the doors slide open. So what I do is before I come close to the sensor, I do this little motion with my fingers like I'm a magician. And I imagine that it was my control that opened the sliding doors. And I always laugh, but it works.
Right.
Because what I imagine in that I have the superpower of just, making doors slide open for me. So if I have that power, what else, do I have control over? but it gives a sense of a playfulness about resources. Like all of a sudden, something about that laughter makes those
Right.
resources available again, and then I can get in touch with, with what I do have control over.
Right. Sometimes it sounds really silly, these games, but actually our nervous systems, this is how it works. So when we can signal to our system that we are safe, that we are in control, that we decide how the universe operates, it doesn't matter if it's the operate and the doors that open or whatever. The nervous system, it feels it, and
Yeah.
that works. So I'll give an example. So I like the sense of self-control. So I can play a game in which I decide at the beginning of the day how many glasses of water I'll drink and when. And it can work with anything else. I can decide how many hugs I'll hug myself and when. And I'll put on timers. And I'll have this consistent dose throughout the day of both self-care and sense of controlness in everything that happens, and it will gradually grow into other things that I want to have and that I want that will happen, and it will.
I love that. I love that. So we have been talking about, stepping into a resourceful place, which brings me to resilience.
Right.
So I want to ask you what are, one or two of your top resilience building techniques or resilience building games that you'd like to share with us today.
So I think emotional playfulness is all about resilience, because for me being resilient is being able to stay next to fear, not pushing it away and not running away from it. Just being with it, hugging this part of ourselves that is being fearful. We are allowed to be afraid. It's okay. It's healthy. It's not something that we need to shut down. So for me, being
Yeah.
resilient is the ability to be there with my fear, invite it to play with me, and being able to hear what it has to say and what danger it sees that I need to avoid.
So I guess, one thing that came up for me as you were talking about that, being with the fear, being with myself as I'm going through these things, that's at the core of resilience. And for me, it also builds inner trust. We were talking earlier about rebuilding confidence, but it's the fact that I do not abandon myself.
Exactly.
Because, when we emotionally check out, we abandon ourselves. So, being able to do that and to do that in a playful way. So we're not adding suffering as we're holding a space for ourselves and being with myself. I think that's an amazing gift. Amazing.
I love it.
So, my dear,
Sorry, I can be here for hours. So
I know, so can I. No, but complete your sentence and then you go. We're going to have to start wrapping this up at some point.
I
But
just want
complete
to
your
say
sentence.
I love how playfulness not only helps us deal with our challenges in life, it also helps us build more resources, because by having fun doing it, we just build more resources while solving our problems, and that's awesome.
Yeah. And it also connects us to a childlike state, which is different than childish. So, childish
Right.
is being infantile, but childlike connects us to a mindset that we had as kids where the world was safe and things were possible and resources were at the tip of our fingers. They were close and they were available. And then we grew up and we learned that things are more complex, but it's a mindset. So, my dear, thank you for this. I feel like, you brought this treasure box with you and we opened it and, we found all these amazing treasures inside. So, this was an incredible conversation. So much. Thank you so much for being my guest. So, Jasmine, where can people find you and learn more about your work?
So most of my work is in Hebrew, but there are the Unleashing Dragons cards that you can play with. And actually, you said you use it with your clients, and I love it that we can play with our clients. That's amazing, because we can be there and model for them how people can play and enjoy together. So, Itkati. You could also find my book really soon in December. I think it will be translated soon. It's called Unleashing Dragons, a manual for fulfilling your deepest desires. And actually, I just want to invite people to don't not rush to fix themselves and not fight their dragons and not push away fears and just play. Just find the ways to play with yourselves and with others and with parts of self that you find.
So we will have some information in the bottom about your website, how people can purchase these cards, how people can contact you, follow you on social media, ask you questions, and all kinds of other lovely things. And to the audience, thank you for joining us today. If you're a coach who wants to learn how to support your clients through life's hardest challenges, and maybe even doing that while being playful. Tune into the next episodes and check us out on social media for additional content and trainings. And thank you so much for being with us today. Shalom.
Thank you for having me.